DATV, and the Greater Dayton Area League of Women Voters present Meet the Candidates, your chance to learn about the candidates running for office in the November election.
Hello, my name is Janine Kinnison, a member of the League of Women Voters of the Greater Dayton area. I am here today with candidates running for Dayton City Commission. The candidates are Marcus Bedinger, Valerie Duncan, Matt Joseph, and Chris Shaw. We will start our interviews by giving the candidates 1 minute to tell us about themselves and why they want to serve on Dayton City Commission. Mr. Bedinger, would you start?
Sure. Good morning, and thanks for the invitation. I'm pleased to be here. As you said perfectly, my name is Marcus Bedinger, and I'm a candidate for Dayton City Commission because, I'm born and raised in Dayton. My father was a union factory worker. My mother was a church secretary, and I moved away for a little while, but I moved home during the COVID-19 pandemic, and once things opened up and I was allowed to get out into the city that I grew up in, I saw kind of a tale of two cities where downtown we saw billions of dollars of investment, over a number of years. Whereas where I live in Roosevelt, I'm next door to a home that's been abandoned for as long as some people have been in office. And so I just see an opportunity to have a different conversation in Dayton about what we can do for our neighborhoods that have been left behind for decades. And I think you'll hear a little later how these neighborhoods have to wait a few decades more before they see the kinds of progress that we've seen downtown. And I just think we can have a much different conversation.
Thank you. Ms. Valerie Duncan?
Hello, and thank you for League of Women Voters for inviting us to this forum. First of all, yes, I'm like Marcus. I come from a labor, blue-collar family. I was raised here in Dayton, Ohio, graduated from Wilbur Wright High School. And the era that I came from, and I have that same philosophy today, is that whatever you put your mind to do, you can accomplish it. And I was very fortunate to have friends that whatever it was that they wanted to do after high school, they went and did it. And some went into businesses and all sorts of professions. And I just wanted to say that I'm looking forward to this debate. And I appreciate you inviting us again to this.
Thank you. Mr. Matt Joseph?
Morning. Thank you to the League for inviting us. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak. I know that some candidates have been avoiding these. I really appreciate all my colleagues, all my fellow people running here coming to this, and I appreciate the League putting this on. Thank you also, Janine, for hosting. I'm Matt Joseph. I'm a Dayton City Commissioner. I'm running because there's unfinished work. We've put Dayton, Commissioner Shaw and I have helped put Dayton on the right trajectory, but there's still plenty of work left to do. I think I'm the right person, the right time to do that work. We'll talk a little later about the things that have been happening and some of the good things and some of the challenges, but I don't want to leave now. I'm passionate about making sure that we put Dayton on the right track for our kids and our grandkids. Thank you.
Thank you. If it's all right with the other candidates, we'd like to go ahead and let Mr. Shaw introduce himself. He has 1 minute and to tell us why he wants to serve on the Dayton City Commission.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to the League of Women Voters for allowing us this opportunity today. I'm really excited about the future. I am very proud of the work that I've been doing for these last couple terms, making workforce connectivity to our youth and young people around the community, to provide strong economic growth and development in this community, which we so desperately have needed, and we're starting to see the fruits of that labor. Over $1.5 billion in investment in downtown, which allows us to provide the services and strengthen the outer ring neighborhoods. And we're starting to see that kind of investment happening. But no community grows unless they grow the urban core first. And I'm just so thankful that folks are finally starting to recognize that and appreciate Dayton, the urban core, for what it is, the engine for growth in this region.
Thank you. everyone for that introduction. I will ask each candidate the same questions. You will have 2 minutes to speak to each question, and then I will move on to the next candidate and give them 2 minutes to respond. I will start with you, Ms. Duncan, with the first question. What should the city do to address the need for affordable housing for residents in lower income brackets?
Thanks for that question. Yes, there's a number of programs that the city can initiate. At one time, we were on track with low and moderate income housing. I think we need to continue to increase that availability throughout the city and throughout the county. Again, we were on track, and now it has slowed down, the availability of low and income housing, because what's happening is that the prices of rent are going through the roof. And so that's really putting a burden on low and income families to afford their rent. And I see that is a need for both paths. I think developers are coming into Dayton off of Salem Avenue. They're building or refiguring buildings for higher income rent families. I think that's good, but we can't leave the low and moderate income families out. They have a place in Dayton also. And so we need to create programs so that we allow those low and income moderate families not only to survive in Dayton, but to live and be as viable a citizen as all the rest of us Daytonians. And so we need to create pathways. We need to provide job training for them so that they can progress forward and raise their statures. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Matt Joseph, the question 1 is, what should the city do to address the need for affordable housing for residents in lower income brackets?
Thank you. Yes, that's a key question. So it's a multifaceted problem, so you have to attack it a lot of different ways. One way that we've attacked it is that we've been in contact and we've sought out developers who specialize in working class housing, making housing affordable for people who, may be taking jobs at the new developments up by the airport, maybe new jobs at some of the factories, some of the manufacturers that are locating in the city. So we're working with them, and you've seen at the last few commission meetings, we've approved a number of proposals to build actually hundreds of new housing units that are aimed to be affordable. We're also working with their housing authority, the local housing authority, because housing is a national problem. And the federal government does put resources toward it. So we maintain close contact with our housing authority to make sure that folks that seek housing get it. And they have a long waiting list, and that's a problem that we're seeing nationwide. But we're working with them to make sure that when they do get housing, that's quality housing, and making sure that we're coordinating with them to make that happen. The other thing that I do want to mention is that the basic problem is that people are not paid enough in general for full days work. This is a federal problem. This is a national problem. If people were paid a decent wage, then nationally this problem wouldn't go away, but it would certainly be much less than it is now. People who work an honest day's work need an honest day's wage. So I think that we're left dealing with it as a city at the tail end of the problem, when the root of the problem is a federal one. But thank you for the question.
You're welcome. I'm going to go ahead and let Mr. Bedinger answer this question, and then we'll go back to Mr. Shaw. We had some technical issues. So Mr. Bedinger, question 1. What should the city do to address the need for affordable housing for residents in lower income brackets?
Thank you very much for the question. I agree with Commissioner Joseph, in that this is a multifaceted problem that is national in scale. But there are things that we could do here in Dayton. Like I mentioned in my opening statement, downtown has seen over $1 billion in investment. And those condos are going for hundreds of thousands of dollars down there. That is obviously not for working class or low income families, but we could have done something like inclusionary zoning, which says if you want to come into our city and build amazing properties that we love and need to see downtown, this should include some units that people can actually afford to live in without having, six-figure salaries or moving from, outside of Dayton into Dayton and buying up those condos in that living space downtown. Another thing, I'm honored to have worked for Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who has been working to repeal the Faircloth Amendment, which put a freeze on building low-income housing at the federal level, and we need to repeal that and build some low-income housing at a national scale. And that's really the only thing that's going to really alleviate this issue for Dayton and other cities like Dayton. But there are some things we could have done here, like inclusionary zoning, and I would love to see some of that in my own neighborhood, where houses are being bought up again for much more than they're worth, because the land it's sitting on is going to be worth more than the house that's on it. And then, past this prologue, that likely won't be a low-income house replacing it. And so we need to do something now before low-income families are displaced out of Dayton. Thank you very much.
Mr. Shaw, first question. What should the city do to address the need for affordable housing for residents in lower income brackets?
Yes, thank you for that question. And I apologize, I'm kind of hoarse right now. I'm at home with COVID. But having said that, I really agree with what my colleague said, and also Mr. Bedinger. We do need affordable housing in downtown. We need worker housing to support our workforce in general. But this is a federal issue, and it's appropriate that the Congresswoman is working on this because it's at that level. What we're doing locally, we stood up a housing committee to study the issue. They are making recommendations in a report, and they did a briefing with us several weeks ago. I'm really happy that we are taking a strong look at this. Now, to Mr. Bedinger's point, we were intentional about including affordable housing in the Delco Loss project, where we worked with the developer to provide a community benefit agreement that addressed or started to address that issue, where we provided very low rents for first-year teachers with the school system. So trying to abate the tax abatement that we were able to put in place there were some things that we were intentional about doing in terms of providing affordable housing in this community. But it is a state and federal issue that we really need to address, especially after the tornadoes. We have found ourselves in the same situation that many communities around this country are facing, a shortage of affordable housing in this community. So we need to be working on that, and that's what we're doing.
Thank you. Okay, now we will start with question number 2, and I'd like Mr. Joseph to answer this first. The question is, what ideas do you have for strengthening neighborhoods outside the downtown area?
That's an important question, and one that sounds like we're going to be hitting on a lot here in this series of questions. I can tell you the success that we've had in neighborhoods has come when two things have happened. The first is we've had strong neighborhood groups, folks speaking up on their own behalf, work on their own behalf, cleaning up their neighborhoods, bringing people together to share information. So the fact that we have an increasing number of strong neighborhood associations, and we're working to increase that number is the first step. We have a monthly meeting of quarterly meeting of neighborhood presidents, and they share information, they share best practices, they're briefed on what's happening at the city and how their neighborhoods can benefit. And we're doing everything we can to strengthen those organizations. The second thing is to make sure that our neighborhoods are wonderful places to live. That means clean and safe. That means increasing the number of times we mow vacant property, which we've done. That means demolishing houses where it's needed. The funding that's coming down from the federal government, in the next year and a half or 2 years, we're going to knock down around 1,000 houses, maybe more. And neighborhoods are going to benefit from that. So clean, safe, active neighborhoods are the best neighborhoods. We're going to continue doing what we've done and adding more to that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm now going to ask Mr. Shaw, what ideas do you have for strengthening neighborhoods outside the downtown area?
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. It's a very important one. And like I said before, the neighborhood development work that we're able to do is directly related to the footprint of downtown Dayton. That is the economic driver for what we can do in the neighborhoods. But having said that, I too believe that strengthening and cleaning, making sure that the streets are paved, that the parks are refreshed and updated, the gateways are imminent, so that we can attract outsiders to move back to our city. The one problem that we've got in the city is that we've lost a significant number of our population over the decades. We're starting to see that turn around. And to the extent that we can make these neighborhoods safe and attractive, it's going to encourage outsiders to move back into the urban core. And we're starting to see that happen. If you look at the West Social tap in West Dayton on West 3rd Street, these are the kinds of indicators that show that the work that we've been doing to strengthen downtown is starting to bear fruit and roll out into the neighboring communities. We're starting to see much more housing activity in Wolf Creek and Five Oaks and other places that we so desperately need. And this is going to attract investment. We have to be telling a positive story about our community. And that also provides folks with the opportunity to move back here. If we tell a negative story, that's not doesn't go a very long way to attracting development. But if we tell the positive stories, the positive things that are happening in our neighborhoods and in our community, like at the Wright Brothers factory site, where we're going to be seeing some extraordinary development work in a very depressed part of our city. These are the kinds of stories that we'll be telling, and I am very hopeful for the future.
Thank you. Mr. Bedinger, what ideas do you have for strengthening neighborhoods outside the downtown area?
Thank you for the question, that is. I agree with what's been said that we do need a vibrant downtown, and that's an indicator of revitalized city. But as someone who lives in one of these outer neighborhoods, a lot of that revitalization has been focused on people who did not have to live through Dayton after we lost, a huge manufacturing base in terms of jobs and incomes. We're rolling out the red carpet for a lot of people who are new to this city, and it's a lot of amenities that they can enjoy. And sure, let's have that. But when you live in a neighborhood like Roosevelt, you want to see jobs and higher wages right in your neighborhood, and you want to see safety and security in your neighborhood. And that doesn't mean a red light camera as soon as you turn out of your neighborhood. And we don't have these in other areas of the city. And so in terms of strengthening neighborhood, we have to think about the people who live in them. And a lot of times we ascribe policies to these neighborhoods that affect people, and we haven't discussed their neighborhood with them. And I heard something about neighborhood groups, and we have strong neighborhood groups. There needs to be more collaboration with these groups because they have ideas about what can revitalize their city, and they have definitely ideas about what has been going wrong in their neighborhoods. And so, we hear about the streets being repaved, sure, but behind my house is an alleyway with tons of trash and broken glass. And it sounds to me like that's my responsibility to clean up, despite the fact that it has been this way for decades. And so I just don't think that's fair that we let these neighborhoods crumble around the people who lived here, and then it's incumbent on them to fix it and then you drive 5 minutes down 3rd Street and you see $1.5 billion of investment in downtown. That is just a very unfair proposition. And so I agree a lot with what's been said, but we could collaborate a lot more with the people who live in these neighborhoods. They have ideas about what needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, what ideas do you have for strengthening neighborhoods outside the downtown area?
Yes. Well, there are several ideas that I have, and there mostly is we have to strengthen our neighborhoods. They have been in the decline. Anybody that's been on the city commission for 20 years would know, if they would go to the neighborhood meetings, if they did drive around and look at the deplorable conditions of the houses. I went to a lady's house. On one side, the roof is collapsing. On the other side, it's boarded up. That's her condition in her neighborhood. The current city commission have been negligent. They let the housing inspection division run down to 2 housing inspectors. Now they're gearing it up, but they're way far behind. that has caused a lot of dilapidation and boarded up houses. And we need to do more than just tear down houses in specific neighborhoods. We have to create different housing projects where the residents can acquire these houses that are boarded up. A lot of the houses can be acquired, and they can be fixed, they can be rehabilitated. They're not beyond repair. There should be low interest loans for residents that want to repair. There should be more senior programs so that seniors can fix up their houses. We need to address the high rent situation. And we also need to beef up our housing inspection division, which was run down over the years. So there's so many things that we can do as a city to have attractive neighborhoods.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to our third and final question. This I'm going to begin with Mr. Bedinger. How do you see the role of the City Commission in the city manager form of government?
Thank you for the question. We have our form of government, but the City Commission has clear responsibilities. There are a few appointments that the City Commission makes. We pass the ordinances, approve or deny the budget. And so, those are the really clear responsibilities of a commissioner. But as someone who has worked in constituent services, I see a community in need. And I would like to be a commissioner that responds much more readily to the needs of the community. I have been someone who has connected people to, their Medicare, connected them to their Social Security, connected them to veterans benefits, and certainly throughout the pandemic, a host of other resources. And unfortunately, Dayton is a city that is hurting when we talk about outside of downtown. And so we need to be much more available as a commission to people who need to be connected with those resources. It doesn't always have to be, city money. There are a ton of organizations that have been supportive of my campaign, who need to be connected to people out in the community, and they don't get that help from the commission at the level that I think could be provided. And so I'm not necessarily talking about throwing government money at these issues. I'm talking about connecting people who are doing great work in our community to the people who need these resources. And that's one thing that I think could really be improved from our commission. But also when we talk about the responsibilities that are laid out in our city charter, there are a number of appointments we could look at in terms of our city agencies, the number of ordinances, and certainly a different conversation we can have about our budget. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm now going to move to Mr. Shaw. How do you see the role of the City Commission in the city manager form of government?
Yes, thank you for that question. The City Commission is primarily a policy body where we go out and take a look at best practices around the country to determine, good policy objectives that we then present to the city manager. And in our role as commissioners, we hold the city manager accountable for reaching the objectives that we set out. So it's worked for a very long time, and I'm very happy with the way that the city government is set up. There are opportunities to touch with state and federal partners, our county partners as well, where we can move the needle, effectuate change. I've been very lucky to be able to travel to Washington, D.C. with the mayor and others, the city manager, to lobby with the Department of HUD, with the Department of Transportation and FAA and many others to bring resources to our community so that we can keep moving our city forward. That work continues, and we just have to be very vigilant. I'm on a Transportation and Infrastructure Committee with the National League of Cities. I am trying to move up into the leadership of that organization and be able to bring back some really good resources. We've been successful. If you look at the flight line in East Dayton, where we're utilizing the Rails to Trails program to enhance and will really acquire an abandoned piece of railroad track from Norfolk Southern. This and many other kinds of opportunities are out there, and the City Commission can be very helpful in moving the needle forward. But primarily, we're a policy organization, and that's the work that we should be doing, setting budgets and making sure that our values and the values of the residents of the city are represented, and that's what we do.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Duncan, how do you see the role of the City Commission in the city manager form of government?
Thanks for that question. In the role of the City Commission in our current system, it is the responsibility of the City Commission to give direction to the city manager and to the city administration. We, the City Commission, are the ones that tell the city management what the priorities should be of the city, not the other way around. So the agenda should be created through the City Commission office and presented to the city manager, not the other way around. So what's lacking here in this setting is that there's a status quo. There's a mayor and the current incumbents that have a lock on the City Commission right now. And so that's why the neighborhoods are stagnant, because they're not giving a policy direction to the city manager. And that's why our neighborhoods are neglected, our streets are not being paved. There was a mayor's meeting in Eastern Hills, and the street maintenance people said that Smithville was not going to be repaved until 2027. Now that's not I think a direction that as far as priority of streets, that the City Commission has directed the city administration, or that would have been corrected. And so I think we need new leadership on the City Commission.
Thank you. Mr. Joseph, how do you see the role of the City Commission in the city manager form of government?
Thank you. That's a good question, and one that some folks actually get mixed up quite a bit. So the current status is we commissioners are part-time, and the city manager and professional staff are full-time. It's been that way since the flood. City leaders got together after the flood and decided to reform the process and try to get rid of corruption. Before that, city commissioners and mayor were full-time, and the city manager just sort of did their bidding. And that led to corruption. It led to people hiring their cousins, all kinds of bad things. So this reform over 100 years ago made city commission part-time and sort of took all of us a step away from the actual processes of the city, and we'll leave that to technical staff, to professional staff, to actually carry out the mission. So that's why it is like it is. One example of how it works is a few years ago, we could clearly see after the housing crisis and even before that our housing stock was declining. Folks needed a better place to live. Neighborhoods needed fixed up. So we directed the city manager, the commission, to figure out some way to do it. So she looked at the processes, how we inspect houses, what happens with housing inspection, permitting, what happens with people that actually have violations, and she put a new process into place. So now we have our 16 housing inspectors, our 6 folks that are working on nuisance abatement, like demolition and getting rid of problem houses. They have a new process for working in teams to better cover areas and issue more. If there's problems, they can go out and ding people. And also, they gave them new software and hardware, so they don't have to come all the way back to the office to file reports. So they can do it out in the field and do it quicker and more effectively. So in that case, we set the policy, city manager carried it out with the professional staff and people that know what they're doing. And I think it's a good arrangement. Thank you.
Thank you. In closing, we would like to provide each candidate with a minute for a closing statement. I'll start with you, Mr. Bedinger.
Okay, I was going to say the clock. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come and share my ideas. I mentioned that we can have a much different conversation in Dayton in this commission race. And I think it's because it's time for a new voice with a new vision. I don't think this is the time for the city commission to pass the buck to the city manager or to state and federal government while we are facing of course, national issues, we have to have the answers as city commissioners. And this is not something where we charge others with going out and finding a vision for Dayton. I have a very clear idea of what we can do for the people who have been left behind for decades, as long as some people have been in leadership. And we can make that choice in November. And so I hope people go to marcusfordayton.com, check out a lot of those ideas like inclusionary zoning, like protecting our prairie lands, things like that, that really stand up for the Daytonians who have been here for decades. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, your closing statement?
Yes. Again, thanks for the opportunity for the League of Women Voters. Yes, I think there needs to be definitely a vision for Dayton, and I think that new leadership is definitely a need. 20 years on a city commission, and you look around the city, you look at the streets, you look at the neighborhoods, you look at the blight, the boarded up houses. I think that's should not be the reflection of 20 years being on the city commission. I know that I can do much better than that. We need definitely housing programs to turn around our houses. We need a job, and we need to help our seniors and our homeless. We can do a better job all over to help the Daytonians, the neighborhoods that need the city commission's help and direction. And I am that candidate, and I appreciate that you give me the opportunity to serve you by voting for me November 7th.
Thank you. Mr. Joseph, your closing statement, 1 minute, please.
Sure. Thank you again to the League for hosting us. It's really nice to have a chance like this to talk with you and to get a chance to talk to the public about our record and what we want to do. I'm proud of my record as a city commissioner. I really do hope to have the chance to continue this work. We've seen many challenges over the years. We lost a bunch of employers. We had tornadoes, we had mass shootings, we had all kinds of stuff, impact of COVID. But we've seen successes too. Me and my colleagues, we brought over 1,000 good paying jobs. We brought back curbside leaf pickup. We're paving residential streets. We're spending $22 million to demolish abandoned houses in everybody's neighborhoods. We're buying new playground equipment. We're investing in our youth, including making sure we're providing good preschool. There's a lot more work to do, but I want to continue serving in this role. I want to make sure that Dayton remains an attractive city for new employers, for new residents. We have good paying jobs for all levels of education, for all kinds of folks with different skills, and that we're investing in our city's infrastructure, investing in our youth, like I said before in the opening, to make sure that we're leaving the best city possible for our kids and grandkids. I really do want to continue to serve, and I ask for your vote on May 2nd. Thank you.
Mr. Shaw, your closing statement.
Yes, thank you also for this opportunity. It's very important to be able to get our message out. I too am very excited and very thankful for the work that we have been able to do over these last couple of terms that I've been in office. A lot of challenges. I think Commissioner Joseph just talked about tornadoes and mass shootings and COVID and so many other things that have negatively impacted this community. But we've been very strong and aggressive in the way that we fight back. For instance, pushing back on polluters, including the federal government, the right PAT, for contaminating our water. We're going after the pharmaceutical companies for creating this opioid issue that Dayton has been so affected by. So taking advantage of cutting edge technology to strengthen our police department and moving this city forward. I'm very proud of the work that I've done with AFL-CIO and the building trades to stand up an apprenticeship program, and I want to continue that work, and that's why I'm asking for your support and your vote on November 7th.
Thank you for your participation today. Good luck in your campaigns. The League of Women Voters encourages all candidates to run an issue-oriented campaign. Our goal is to educate the voting public and strengthen our elective political process. The annual Voters Guide will be distributed mid-October in the Dayton Daily News. AIM, media suburban newspapers, and local libraries, schools, and businesses. Early voting for the upcoming election begins October 11th at your Board of Elections, or you can request an absentee ballot. However you decide to vote, your opinion matters and helps make our democracy work.